When the Brooklyn Nets signed Yuta Watanabe back in August, most fans probably had no idea who this guy was. He wasn't even guaranteed a roster spot because the Nets signed him to a non-guaranteed contract. But lo and behold, he's become one of the top role players on one of the top teams in the NBA. In fact, he's leading the entire NBA in three-point percentage, knocking down 52% of his threes. And at this rate, he's going to earn himself a nice 8-figure contract when he hits free agency again next summer. But before we deep dive into Yuta's game, let's break down where he came from and how did he get to this point where he's become a key contributor to the Nets in the first place. Yuta Watanabe was born in Japan and comes from great basketball pedigree. Both of his parents played professional basketball in Japan, and his mom played on Japan's women's national team. Coming from two parents that played professional basketball, Watanabe picked up the sport early. He started playing ball at the age of 6, and growing up he was a huge Lakers fan and his favorite player was Kobe Bryant. As a kid, Watanabe already knew that he wanted to play in the NBA when he grew up, but he had naysayers telling him that he had no chance at making the NBA because he was Japanese. But by the time he got to high school, Watanabe was already starting to prove these haters wrong, because by his junior year, he was already a household name in Japan, which earned him the nickname The Chosen One. In late 2013, he decided to attend St. Thomas More Preparatory School in Connecticut, a private boarding school that had produced a number of NBA players over the years. This was a really tough decision for Watanabe because he didn't speak a lick of English and he was leaving his friends, family, and hometown. But Watanabe was determined to reach his goal of playing in the NCAA and making the NBA. During his senior year, Watanabe averaged 13 points and 6 rebounds a game and led St. Thomas More School to a 26-8 overall record and an appearance in the National Prep Championship game, and in that game he scored a team-high 25 points. His high level of play made him a 3-star recruit, and in the fall of 2014, Watanabe committed to George Washington University, and he made history becoming the first ever Japanese-born American to be given an NCAA D1 basketball scholarship. Watanabe didn't put up great numbers his freshman year at George Washington, only averaging 7 points per game on 38% shooting, but there were occasional flashes of brilliance. His best game of his freshman year was a 21-point performance at the end of the season. Watanabe improved in his sophomore year, and by his junior year in Washington, he established himself as one of the better players in college basketball. He ranked second on the team in scoring at 12 points per game, and he became a defensive beast, leading the team with 32 blocks. His hard work on the defensive end earned him getting named to the A10 All-Defensive Team, and by his senior year at George Washington, he made another leap, averaging 16 points and 6 boards per game on 47% shooting from the field and 36% from 3. He became a very good scorer and shooter for George Washington while continuing to dominate on the defensive end. He not only made the A10 All-Defensive Team again, but he was the Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year, and he was also Atlantic 10 All-Conference Third Team. All of these accomplishments made Watanabe an NBA prospect, and he was a potential second-round pick in the 2018 draft. But unfortunately, he didn't hear his name called on draft night. But even though Watanabe didn't get selected, teams still recognized his talent, and it was ironically the Brooklyn Nets who signed him to their summer league team back in 2018. Afterwards, he signed a 2-way contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. He did get some burn for Memphis, but he spent most of his time with them playing for their G League team. But he played really well in the G League with averages of 14.7 boards and over a block a game. But where Watanabe really established a role for himself was on his next team, which was the Toronto Raptors. Watanabe became a great fit in Nick Nurse's system. The Raptors love lanky, long defenders, which is why guys like Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam play big roles on their team. Playing with so many wiry players allows the Raptors to shrink the floor and switch ball screens. Watanabe fit right into that mold because, as discussed before, he's a great defender. He's 6'9" with a long 7-foot wingspan and very quick feet. This allows him to be a great man-to-man defender, but also have an impact as a weak side shot blocker. Watanabe really worked his ass off on the defensive end, and Coach Nick Nurse even said himself that his defensive intensity rubs off on the rest of the team. And despite not being much of a shooter earlier in his career, he shot 40% from three-point range in the 2020-21 season. After spending much of his career in the G League, Watanabe's hard work paid off, and he was a significant part of the Raptors' rotation. But despite being a good bench player, the Raptors chose not to re-sign him, and Watanabe's NBA career went full circle, signing with the Brooklyn Nets again back in August. Watanabe's contract was non-guaranteed, but he took that opportunity and ran with it. Now Watanabe is one of the most valuable bench pieces on a damn good Brooklyn Nets team. Once again, he's thriving on a defensive end with his ability to guard multiple positions, making him a great fit on the Nets switch-heavy system. But what's really taken his game to the next level is his three-point shooting. Watanabe is leading the entire NBA at three-point percentage, knocking down 52% of his threes, and from the corner, he just flat out can't miss, knocking down 68% of his corner threes. He's a great compliment next to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving because his elite shooting creates the spacing needed for these guys to isolate and go to work. He's a great role player for the Brooklyn Nets, and if the Nets continue to trend upwards, they have a serious chance to win their first NBA championship in franchise history, which would also make Watanabe the first Japanese American to win a title in NBA history. And with how valuable 3-and-D players are in today's league, Watanabe is setting himself for a really nice payday next summer, and if it's not from the Nets, it'll definitely be from someone. Overall, Watanabe has one of the most inspiring stories in the NBA. For being told as a kid that he could never make the NBA because he was Japanese, to becoming one of the top role players on one of the top teams in the league. And Watanabe has said himself that he hopes both he and Rai Hachimura, another Japanese American player that plays for the Wizards, can inspire young Japanese players to believe that they could compete at the highest level. Watanabe's story shows that if we're committed, we can accomplish our dreams, even if the odds seem stacked against us. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. Tell me in the comments what you think of Watanabe's story. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like on it and hit that subscribe button. Watanabe's high level of play is really contributing to the Brooklyn Nets hot streak. Click this video to see how the Brooklyn Nets are going nuclear.